All right, so we're going to start our final unit before we head into the second half of the year, the second semester. So the information in this is going to be the final information that we're learning about biology, or like living science, right? Next we're going to get into physical science. So we're talking about your senses, all right? So before we even get started with this, I got a few questions for you that I want you to answer, all right? So take a quick minute to answer these three questions. Next, I want you to think about, if you had to lose one of your senses, which sense would you want to lose? Try that out. So there's 5 basic senses, and there's really more than these, but these are the major ones that we're going to be discussing. Vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Okay? We're focusing on vision today, and we're going to learn the first half of what we have to know about the eyes. So, here's a warm-up. Which of these words do you recognize? Try that out. Try to define the words that you recognize as well. Okay, so we're going to start with the front of the eye, and we're going to work our way back. And I will show you a model of this, but I just want to discuss this first. So the cornea is the absolute front part of your eye. So it's the outer part of your eye. It's almost similar to the texture of wax in the sense that it can be scratched really easy. So like candle wax. So it can be scratched really, really easily. You never want to touch your eyeball with your hands, ever, ever. Like not once, not even the side, not to joke around. Just never touch your eyeballs with anything unless it's a doctor. So behind that transparent layer of your eye is this thing called the pupil. So when we look at people's pupils, we tend to see blackness. But really what we're seeing is that the inside of your eye is really just this dark chamber. A pupil is actually completely clear. And the way I like to think about this is if you're outside at night looking into a window and there's no lights on in that house where that window is, that window looks black. But we really all know that it's the inside of the house that's black and not the window itself. That's kind of like our pupil. Our pupil is completely clear like the window, but the inside of our eye is the dark or the black part, okay? It's not really black, it's just dark in there. So that's the pupil. And the pupil, the size of the pupil, you know how your pupils can dilate? Dilate means to grow or to shrink. Your pupils can dilate due to the iris. The iris is the colored part of the eye. And that is really a muscle that pulls open the pupil or closes the pupil, that open, clear, transparent layer. Usually when it's dark out, our pupils dilate to become larger because our iris is allowing that space to open up to let more light in. And when it's really bright out, our pupils dilate to become smaller, where our irises flex and become very, very, very tight, and we have a small hole for the pupil. Behind the iris is this like we call it a lens, but it's like this like sack of transparent liquid that can bend, and because of its bending, it allows light to focus on the back of our eye a little better, a little clearer, depending on the distance that we're seeing. So you can sense this when you look far away and then you look at your hand real quick. You see that there's like a little delay between the time it takes to get clear. This is caused by the lens focusing, so whether contracting or expanding, depending on what our muscles in our eye do. So this is the basic part. We do call the white part the sclera. You don't have to know that for this class. But here's the iris. It's the colored part of the eye. It's the muscle that controls the pupil. And in front of all of this here, in front of you, which covers a little bit past your iris, that is the cornea. And the cornea is that really clear lens that scratches really easily. Don't ever touch your eyeball. Okay, so on the back of your eye, we call it the retina. The retina, it looks like this under, if you took a picture, this is a real picture of the retina. That's what the retina looks like. And on the retina, there are these tiny, tiny cells called rods and cones. Rods detect how bright something is or how dim something is, while cones detect the colors of the objects, okay? So let's get back to that. The retina is the entire back of the eye. It's got light-sensitive cells called rods and cones. Rods detect how bright something is, right? Cones detect the actual colors of things. And then the optic nerve sends the information to the back of the brain. So the grays here, and the difference between the light part of the grays and the dark part of the grays, that's your rods determining that. But this green and the little blue and yellow flowers here, those are your cones detecting that. Now, if we look at the back of the eye, you'll see this little spot right here. This is your optic nerve. Your optic nerve is the thing that collects the information from all these light-sensitive cells in the back of your eye, and it sends the information to your brain. All right? So let's just do a little review, because you are expected to be able to draw the cross-section of an eye. So this is the optic nerve. This is what we saw in the back of that picture there. This is the entire retina here. And on the retina, you have these cells called rods and cones. All right? So the front of the eye is the cornea. I'll be right. Give me 1 second. Hello? Good, you? Sounds good. Thank you. Bye. All right. So the front of the eye, the entire thing that covers the iris and the pupil is called the cornea. And then you see these pink things, which are actually on the front of them would be the colored part of your eye. So these are really just like muscles here that contract and relax. So they relax this way and they contract and make the pupil smaller. The lens is behind that. This is the thing that changes its shape and it focuses the light on the back of the eye, which is called the retina. All right? Okay. Not talking to myself.
Are you?
I promise I'm not.